All right, before we do this, I want to just reiterate, as we always do, that this is going to be a review show. We're going to talk about comics. We're going to dig into them a little bit. So inevitably, you can't do that without spoiling some things. So here is your Southern Fried Geekery official, fresh, hot off the rack spoiler warning.
1, 2, 3.
All right, we ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it. All right. 5, 4, 3. You got another cough?
Got it. Done.
Good?
No, I can't say that. I'll never guarantee that.
No warranty.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. And this is episode 110. Just keeping on racking those numbers up. Think we're ever going to hit 4 digits?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
It's a long ways away.
I don't want to think about that. That's a lot of time.
With our lifestyle?
That's a very valid point.
That is valid.
And what do you mean lifestyle? I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And we are back, and we're going to talk about some funny books today, some comics. For those of you who may be new to the show, maybe you're not new to the show, maybe you just bumped your head this week and you forgot what we do. We are a podcast that we meet once a week. We gather around the table, drink some coffee, high-five each other, and we talk about some funny books, some comics that we love, except once a month.
I feel cheated. I didn't get a high five.
Here, high five. There we go. We'll fill that gap in your life.
All right, thank you.
Except for once a month where Matt rips up my script, throws it in the back, and we bring the chaos. And it's fun times all around.
Yes.
We like to keep things pretty much upbeat for the most part. We try not to drag anything through the mud, because why would we want to waste our time doing that? We also are the purveyors of a fancy little Facebook group page. We have an Instagram and a Twitter feed. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And because we're technologically advanced, we're, spacemen of the future, we have an email address, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com, where you can reach us with all your questions, comments, and concerns that we know you have. These deep-seated, just heartfelt issues that you want to get out about the comics or the geek world at large. So, yeah, that's what we do. That's who we are. And we thank you for listening. We appreciate it. It's fun times. How's y'all's week's been?
Busy.
Busy?
Yeah, it's been good. I've been fighting my blood sugar all week, so I just feel a little, not great, but not bad, just,
I'm sorry you're not feeling good, buddy.
It is what it is, brother.
You'll have that. Craig and I went and watched a little concerto on Friday. We went to the booming metropolis of Memphis and saw the band Tool, which was really cool. I don't know, I think we were talking about it after the show. I felt it was weird going to a show with that much energy and that loud and that big, but still leaving the show feeling like not exhausted, just kind of refreshed because of the way it's like loud and energetic, but mellow somehow.
Oh, yeah, that's Tool.
Yeah. And so it was nice. Like we were leaving, I was like, that was nice. I feel good. As opposed to some of the other shows I'm going where, you're asking the paramedics to give you oxygen because you're dying.
I find that humorous.
So,
even a Tool concert, feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
I've always known Maynard is a little different, but I did not know he was so different that, no spotlight on him at all through the entire show.
He wants the focus to be completely on the band.
Yeah.
So have you not seen him in live before?
No, that's my first time.
It was my first time too.
Really?
Yeah. Craig and I lost our virginity together with a Tool.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. I've seen Tool and I've seen Perfect Circle.
Have you? I've never seen APC.
Is it same with Perfect Circle? No spotlight on him?
Yeah. I mean, they look like the same band on stage.
They sound much like the same band, honestly.
And, but the first time I saw Tool, what Maynard did is they started the concert out. He was actually behind a white screen playing 2 drums, and you could just see a silhouette. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's wicked.
So they actually had a curtain of chains on this.
So that they could project stuff onto the...
And give it the 3D effect. I mean, one of the best visual performances I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I really want to
warn you about the disturbing images.
Craig was a little bothered. Craig,
I wasn't bothered. It was I had a gummy, and
Marshmallow, huh?
Yeah.
It was
there was points where I just kind of existed during that show.
It's fun times. I loved it. Had a great time. The dude opening for them was this industrial synth kind of DJ, except he didn't have turntables. But I looked him up on YouTube. I really.
You do realize most DJs don't have turntables anymore.
Well,
it's all digital now.
They do, but they still have the little. It's a digital turntable.
Yeah,
you still got the ones and twos, man.
I don't know anything about DJs.
Getting it squeaky, squeaky, squeaky.
Don't they work on the radio?
Sometimes. I mean, technically, we're not jockeying discs, but I might be a DJ. I don't know. You like my Facebook page. See me on SoundCloud. Nah, just kidding. So I'm glad all of that went down this week. Fun times all around. But we do want to talk about the comics. So let's kind of dive into the. Oh no, wait, back up before we do that. Who's everybody going for in the big game today? That we and need to reiterate. We cannot say the words according to Matt. My lawyer, Mr. Matt Trogdon. Has informed us that we are not allowed to say the words, so we call it the big game.
Yep, just looking out for your best interest. That's all.
I know this is like the nerds listening to this are like, oh shit. Yeah. So,
sport talk.
Any predictions?
There's a sport match on. I mean, seems unlikely that the Chiefs are going to beat the 49ers. I would like to see that happen, just because I'd like to see Andy Reid win a Super Bowl.
Okay,
I feel like he is overdue, and that's about all I got.
I'm not a huge football fan anymore, but I'm going to be pulling for the 49ers in the big game.
Okay.
And only because they were my grandpa's team.
Nice.
So,
a little nostalgia there.
Yeah.
I want the 49ers to win. I think the Chiefs are going to pull it out, though. That's my prediction, and we'll see.
There's like only a 1.5 point spread in the.
It's going to be tight. It should be a good game.
It should be. Yeah.
Everybody just doesn't like. They're going to listen to this, and number one, they're going to listen to it after the game is over, and so they're going to be realize how wrong that we all were.
Yeah.
And then they're just going to be annoyed.
I'm just happy that a certain team from New England is not there.
Yay. Let me just clap.
Yeah.
So what did we read this week, guys? We like to shart. We like to shart.
No, we do not.
We try not to.
I tried not to shart.
That's a one person we.
Everybody take a deep breath and clench, by all means. We like to start out our podcast, just get the motor running a little bit by, we call them short stacks, Southern fried geekery. What's better than a couple of pancakes on a Sunday morning? 3 things that we read this week that we may have liked them, we may not have liked them, we just had thoughts, but kind of gives us an idea of what we're reading, gives you guys listening an idea of what we're reading, because we can't talk about everything. So I'll start if y'all guys are cool with that.
I don't like it.
Okay.
Go.
No, I'll shart then, not start. Grunt grit. So one of the things I read this week that I actually really, really enjoyed, I've enjoyed this entire series, some of it twice, was Deadeye's #4 by Jerry Duggan, John McCrae, Mike Spicer, and Joe Sabino. And this was the final issue of the first arc of Deadeyes. Now this is the series that started out as another name. And then they had some, again, kind of like we can't say the name of the big game, they had some contractual issues that they had to work out. And so they rebranded as Dead Eyes. It's a great crime story. It's a fun crime story. It really speaks to some of the issues. I always like it when books elevate themselves, so it speaks a lot towards how much Medicare and like just a medical system in America costs and how people are driven to crime by it. Fun times. I really, really liked this book. The second book that I wanted to talk about, it's actually a few weeks old, but I couldn't remember if I mentioned it on the show, and I really loved it, so just I'm going to err on the side of the fact that I may not have, and that is the Freedom Fighters #12 out of DC Comics.
Did not.
I did not. Okay, just I wasn't sure if I'd talk to you guys about this. This is Robert Venditti and Eddie Barrows, and it's kind of their Earth X story. I'm not somebody who typically likes stuff like Earth X, like outside of continuity stuff. Other than maybe a short Elseworlds tale. But this book was amazing. Eddie Barrows showed out this entire series. I absolutely loved it. The good guys win at the end of it, but they have to pay a price. And that's kind of all I'll say about it. And I get that that's kind of a cliche ending to any superhero story. But it's just so well done. So well done. And also lots of Nazis died, and that just warms my cockles. So, and then last but certainly not least is a book that the listeners, and I don't know about you, you guys may have read it, but the listeners definitely have not read it yet because it hasn't come out yet. Our good friends, our dear friends over at Ahoy Comics have been nice enough to add us to their list of people that they send out review copies to, which is great. Like on some level that gives us some sense of, how did you put it the other day, Craig?
Credibility?
Credibility, some sense of like we're doing something right.
I like how credibility, you had a hard time associating that with us.
I do too, but yeah.
Well, it makes us feel good because we do put a lot of work into this, and maybe the industry
Don't argue with me on Facebook. I am a semi-professional comic book podcaster.
I get books faster than you. But no, so the amazing people at Ahoy Comics added us to their they're pre-lists of people that they send out review copies to,
Pre-solicitations?
which is nice because then we get the books and we can kind of tell you guys what to look out for. So the book I want to tell you guys about, Captain Ginger Season 2 is going to start. And in a few weeks, and it's called Dogworld. Now, I loved the first the first chapter of this. I mean, and I'm not even a cat person, and I still thought it was great. And it's written by Stuart Moore, drawn by June Brigman, who I absolutely adore. Of Power Pack fame, she's an amazing
I'm gonna
person.
take a guess. Roy Richardson did the inks on it.
He did.
Yeah.
Yep. That team, they just go really well together. Veronica Giondi and Richard Starkings are the folks that wrap up that team. It's fun. It is. If you like the space adventure and the weird kitty madness that the first season was, like I said, this one's called Dogworld. So we're finally getting the dogs and the cats in space fighting each other. It's what it seems like. But when this comes out, you guys are going to want to read it. And if you haven't read season 1 of it, you can get that trade. And it's fun times. I put my stamp on it. I love what Ahoy's doing. I think they're a great publisher. They give you a lot of bang for your buck. All the back matter is just tight. It's awesome. What'd you read this week, Matt?
So my 3, starting with DC Comics, I read Suicide Squad #2 by Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo, and Adriano Lucas. I really like this issue. Did y'all read this?
I haven't. No.
I'm liking a Suicide Squad book. What world am I in?
How does that make you feel, Matt?
Confused.
I love it though.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I love the fact that you took a chance on something that you didn't have a lot of history with, or you wouldn't on paper necessarily like, and then you just you were beaming when we were talking about it on the show. So.
Yeah, it's strong, man. And this second issue was much better than the first, and I really liked the first.
I did too. Was there any fish people getting bit in half?
No spoilers.
Okay, fair.
It's just that the layout and the way that the story was executed was really strong. It was a really good issue. I recommend this one. I'm going to stay on it.
Nice.
Secondly, I read from Dark Horse Comics, The Butcher of Paris #2 by Stephanie Phillips, Dean Kotz, and Jason Wordie.
Really good.
Yeah, again, really good. I expected this one to be good, and it's held up to my expectations. They're just getting more into the investigation itself and the Nazis injecting themselves into the French authorities' investigation and why they're doing so. Very well structured, very compelling, strong. So I recommend this one.
I have a question on that. Did you say that?
I'm not answering questions.
Pretty please.
Okay.
Did you say that came out last week?
I read it last week. It came out a couple of weeks ago and we missed it. So.
We did? Okay.
Our local comic book store missed it, and then they ordered it for us on back issue. So it should be in your box right now.
Okay. That's because I didn't get it. And I also noticed when I was looking for the next week's books that #3 comes out next week. So I was very confused.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
There you go.
This is why I come to you with my questions.
Our local comic book store being Kapow Comics in Sherwood, Arkansas.
Yeah, correct. Thirdly, I read from Image Comics, Farmhand #13 by Rob Guillory and Jeremy Treese.
Really fucking good.
Really, really good. It's taken a very dramatic turn. The intensity is ratcheting up in this. You find out a lot about the background of the start of this business that Farmhand is based on. And,
would you say that book's a mystery now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I felt that way from the beginning. What I step into?
This is what I put my mystery crime
on. That's correct.
This was his crime book for the...
It's a horror crime.
It is.
Yeah, it's a horror crime book. Now, what I wanted to mention, though, is how drastically different this book felt because they got a new colorist. Did you pick up on
didn't
this?
catch that.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, it popped first page. I'm like, whoa, this book feels a lot different.
I did not catch that, but yeah.
Because he had a, and if I remember correctly, reading that his colorist had to leave and he had to get a new one. This colorist apparently is a fill-in, not the permanent one, but the book looks a lot different.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting, exercise to see just how drastic that was. But once again, I will recommend Farmhand. People need to pick up this book.
It's a really fucking good book, and that last issue was really good.
Yeah.
It went somewhere. You kind of knew what's coming, but maybe not to that point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So that's all three, right?
Yeah, next.
Okay.
We're all
You notice he did himself before you this time. So.
I've done that the last few shows.
I read Killadelphia #3 by Image Comics. Rodney Barnes, Sean Alexander, and
My cousin.
Louis NCT. I don't know if that's his name with no vowels or if it's just initials or what it is. But anyway, this book is absolutely fucking amazing. Did you read issue 3 yet?
Yes, I did.
I mean, so you have John Adams is the main vampire in this, like the father of all vampires.
Oh, okay.
And he is literally mad still at Alexander Hamilton for
He should be.
for talking shit about him
Yes.
250 years ago
Yeah,
at this
fuck that
point.
guy.
It is this book, like, let me just put this, it's already on my my spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's really fucking good. And I know it doesn't go up your alley because it's vampires, but man, it was good.
Nice.
Pretty Violent #6, Image Comics, Derek Hunter, Jason Young, and Spencer Holt. I've been talking about this book since issue 1. This book, again, if you have read I Hate Fairyland, you absolutely, it's the same story except it's superheroes.
Yeah.
I mean, not the same story, the same concept, except it's superheroes. It's drawn very much in a Scotty Young kind of way. Really fucking good. It wrapped up really good. I can't sing the praises of this book enough. If you aren't reading it, pick up the first trade coming out probably next 2 weeks, I would imagine. And then the third book I read was Protector #1, also by Image Comics. Simon Roy, Daniel Benson, Artyom Trekhanov. I have no idea if I said his name right. Jason Wordy. This book takes place in the year 3241 AD in a post-apocalyptic world near the old city of Chicago,
Okay.
which obviously is Chicago, but they've now say it different. And it's a story of a escaped slave girl who finds the help she needs in some sort of old mecha tech that is apparently a giant robot. So
Nice.
it was really a decent book. So really looking forward to see where that goes.
I didn't hear about this. I need to check that out. So speaking of Image, you know what yesterday was, right?
Oh yeah, it was Image's anniversary.
28th birthday of Image Comics. Since those guys left Marvel and just launched it themselves into the stratosphere.
And have now made themselves solidly in the top 3. You can't really talk about the top 2 comics anymore. It's got to be the top 3. The big 3. The big cheese.
It's good to see those guys make good. I mean, even if the people who really started it don't have a whole lot going on with it anymore, it's still,
They're still making money.
oh, they're not lacking in that. Well, all right. So good books all around. Nice to know what you guys are reading. Hopefully, get some of those things, make them a roundtable book at some point. I need to add the guy who does Pretty Violent to my list of people to put on my Gargoyles jam piece.
Oh yeah,
Because that's kind of what the theme I'm going for.
yeah. It's Jason Young,
So I'm going to throw him on the list. Well,
which it's so close to Scotty Young that I had to I had to look up whether they were brothers.
is
wow.
this just your pen name? Are you really doing both? I wouldn't put it past Scotty.
Yeah.
He left Felix Comic Art. I did not know that.
Huh.
Yeah, so Felix is no longer repping him as an artist. He's doing his own thing now. It's interesting. All right, so every week, once we get past the roundtables, what we like to do is we all have consumed the same book. We get together beforehand and decide to read the same book. That way we can give different takes on it. So it's not just one of us, one of us talking up or talking down. It's just the book. And so we all give our thoughts on it. This week, Matt came through our little text message thing with a quickness. And he said, there's no questions this week. Hands down, we're going to do this book. I'll punch you. It was very threatening. I felt threatened. Did you feel threatened, Craig?
I felt aggressed.
You felt aggressed?
He aggressed me.
Yeah, now tell me it was unjustified.
It was not unjustified. It was justifiable threat of violence. And that book, the book that we decided to read this week, was none other than Conan the Barbarian, #12. And this is remarkable. This is notable. Number one, because it's a great story. But this is Jason Aaron and Mahmud Asrar and Matt Wilson's final chapter in their kind of opening salvo of the Conan the comics once Conan as a title came back to Marvel. Once it got back at the House of Ideas where, it was lovingly nurtured for so long by folks like Roy Thomas and the Buscemas and all those guys. This is really when I don't know about you guys, before we get into the story, when I found out who the creative team on this book was, I was already interested because I love Conan. But when you tell me that Jason Aaron and Mahmud Asrar are doing a Conan book and that it's going to be colored by Matt Wilson, I was hooked from jump. I didn't even need to read it yet. And I was giddy.
Yeah, that's an all-star creative team.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting that Aaron is, walking away from Conan, because he is a well-versed Conan fan. He loves Conan the Barbarian.
Well, he's not walking away from Conan. This is his last issue on Conan the Barbarian. And we'll jump to the very, very last part of the book. If you look to the very last page, it's telling you that the next issue, issue 13, is going to start by Jim Zub and Roge Antonio. But later in 2020, King Conan by Jason Aaron and Mahmud Asrar.
Okay.
So he's not
Awesome.
leaving. He's not leaving Conan. He's
Nice.
just leaving this title. He's passing it off and doing another arc. So we're going to get
Nice.
a King Conan,
Which actually fits very well with this story.
yeah, it really does. I mean, it's a beautiful segue.
Yeah.
So before we get into the meat and potatoes of what the story was, I mean, I don't really need to ask, but just for the sake of the fact that we always do, what did you guys think about this book?
I loved it. I mean, of course.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was a fantastic wrap-up to a great I'll call it 2 story arcs, even though it's been one long story arc. I don't know what else you could have asked for in the final chapter of a wrap-up to an arc.
Nothing
beautifully
that was
drawn, beautifully colored, beautifully told. This is much more fun than last week when we all like it.
I made Roger sleep on the couch, and I put this issue on my pillow in my bed last night and snuggled it, and we slept wonderfully. And Roger slept on the couch. I mean, that's how good this was. That didn't actually
I
happen.
didn't quite go that far.
That didn't actually happen. No, anybody who knows me knows that Roger's number one. Not like if anybody's sleeping on the couch, it's me. All right, so this is the end of an arc, though. This is the end of a story. So for the folks who might not be reading it, you're wondering what makes this so good. What's it about? This is a really cool way to tell a Conan story because it's non-linear. If you just watched films like The Witcher, they bounce back and forth in time. This one actually has better cues that you're moving through time than that did, though, so it works. But Conan he's got a storied history, and again, a lot of this goes to Roy Thomas, maybe more than Robert E. Howard, but both of those two figures have worked together to really build up an incredible backstory for Conan. And he's been a thief, he's been down on his luck, he's been a pauper, he's been a king, he's led kingdoms, he's been a little bit of everything, and this story kind of covers all of that, and it does so through the story of these 2 twins, and these 2 kids are the daughters of this witch who worships this blood god Razriel or Razazel or
Yep.
Okay. I look to Matt for clarification and just get a nod. So
it is one of those 2 pronunciations.
In one of the first issues, Conan does as he is wont to do and just goes ahead and kills that witch. But as witches are wont to do, she doesn't stay dead. And it creates this long timeline, this long narrative of these kids trying to take revenge with this witch, their mother, to bring forth this blood god, this god Razazel or Razriel or however I'm pronouncing her today. And the Crimson Witch she's got a lot of power. She packs a lot of heat with her. And these twins, they've waited throughout time over just years until just the right moment to get revenge on Conan for killing their mom, even though their mother, even though they've had access to her, even though like through some sorcery and some black magics, they've revived her. They're out for, literally blood because they want to raise the blood god, but they're out for just revenge on how he smote their family. He sullied their good name. And so this last issue, this final chapter, it opens up in Tortage, which is a city. If you've read some Robert E. Howard, it should be familiar to you. You know where it's at. And it's back in time a little bit, just kind of right after Conan stuck the witch with the pointy end of his metal stick and just killed him. And so they're down on their luck. They're orphans. They're not good people, but they're still orphans. They're in this city. It's raining. They're stuck in the mud, and they're kind of trying to make a plan. They're planning out their revenge, so to speak. They're trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And while they're doing this, while they're sitting in the gutter, literally, these men kind of walk up behind them, and you can tell right off the bat that these are ne'er-do-wells. These are not good people. They've got some ill intent. Well, it turns out they're pirates, and they're literally going to Shanghai these kids. And the poor bastards, either way it goes, they pick the wrong ones because these are not your average normal children. And so as the pirates are like dropping this new information to these kids that they're now going on the boat to like scrub decks and stuff. The little girl, she's just like, okay, I get the big one this time. The kid's like, oh, fine, I'll take the 2 weak ones. Like they're fixing to kill these men, but they don't really have time to, because kind of, out of nowhere, this drunken behemoth of a man who turns out to be Conan just drop kicks one of the guys. He's like, leave these kids alone. Conan the hero, he loves the kids. He's like Trick Daddy from back in the day. Trick loved the kids, Conan loved the kids. That's how it works. And so he just puts his boot on one of these guys and knocks him for a loop. And the other two are like, whoa, like you just fucked up, dude. Like we're going to get you too. But that's not the way Conan works. So he, again, really uses a sword better than he uses his words. And he disarms one of the guy, literally. It just falls right off like an action figure. Just pops it out of socket and falls down. And he proceeds to just do what Conan does best. He kicks much ass. And when that's done, he's looking at these two kids. He's like, this is not the city for you guys. Why are you guys here? Like, you're small people and you haven't developed yet. You should probably go get some help somewhere else. Yes.
May I interject? I think it's important to note that while he is violently dispatching these guys, he never puts down his ale.
No, not one single time.
That is important to note.
He has his cup. And that's important to note because as he's talking to the children after he's telling them that they should go get help, he's asking them what's going on, and they're just like, our mom was murdered, knowing that they're looking at the guy who murdered their mom. He just doesn't recognize them. And in pure Conan fashion, in just a moment of just brilliance, he's like, hey, most mothers wind up murdered. Hopefully she went quick, because that's how Conan comforts children. Like, if you didn't love Jason Aaron before, you definitely do now. So Conan's walking away, and he's talking to these kids, and they kind of fuck up a little bit, and they're like, they call him by his name, and he doesn't. It's like, how do you know my name? But he doesn't think much of it. He's drunk. He's just like, oh, this ale's playing with my head. And so he walks off. He just keeps sauntering down this muddy street and singing a song. Just, Conan's got a song in his heart. I like that idea. Just, he's a happy guy. It really just solidifies my idea of this jolly figure that we know and love. Well, many
Conan.
Yeah, I mean, just it's Conan the musical coming 2021. I think we might have to stop Matt from fighting somebody if they made Conan the musical.
Man,
I think that might be the
that's
straw.
metal.
It could be metal. It could be a metal musical. Conan the metal musical. We're trademarking that.
Yeah.
That's ours.
No.
NFL, you can't come after it.
Are we allowed to say the NFL?
I think so.
Okay.
Today.
Yeah, now. Sue us and make our podcast blow up. So, many years later, after lots of shenanigans have happened, after years and witchcraft and becoming a king and laying waste to parts of the world that aren't Aquilonia, Conan is down in the bowels of a mountain, and the blood god is raised back up. The witch did her work. The twins, after lots of things have happened, They've found a avenue to success. And the whole point of this, the whole reason that they were after Conan to begin with, is because it turns out in order to raise Rezriel, the blood bastard, they needed the blood of a warrior who keeps escaping death. And that's kind of Conan's thing. He's got more lives than a cat. Like, he keeps landing on his feet. And so they finally tricked him. They finally got him where they want him. They're killing him. They've actually already killed him, but he just kind of refuses to stay dead.
What's he say? You killed me before, but it didn't stick.
Yeah, it didn't stick. He's come back. And the blood god, as he is rising up, he is metamorphosized. He's evolved these twins into these demon creatures.
Yeah. And
Conan's fighting them. Again, he's already dispatched with the witch who came back and everything. And he's trying to stop these two twins who are just, by this point, morbid. They're monsters. They're grotesque. And he hits one of them with a rock because he doesn't want to pull the sword out of his chest, because that's just what he does. Conan's really cool, but by the way, did I mention that? And at the same time, he's trying to stop the blood god from coming back. And there's all these veins, all of these blood vessels that are like feeding down into this hole where Conan is. And out of this hole, the blood god is like trying to climb out. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw the actual visage of the blood god, it reminded me so much of the Corinthian from...
oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got all these little mouths just all over him, where the Corinthian only had him in his eye sockets. This guy's just like his skin is nothing but mouth. Like he can bite you with his forearm, which is interesting. So he goes and he's fighting these twins, and he's not in good shape. Like this might, and the whole story, the overarching arc is called The Death of Conan. So this is it's meant to have you believe that this could be the end, and for a minute it looks like it might be. But Conan's not going to quit fighting, and through the years, through all the stories, one of the things that it doesn't specifically say, but it keeps coming back to, is Conan does make friends. Conan does have people at his back. He cuts off one of the twins' heads, but it also doesn't want to die. It tells its sister to like throw, hey, pick up my head and throw it at Conan. I'll bite him in the air. Just these really, really funny moments.
What are you going to do? Bleed on me?
But right when it seems like Conan might lose, right when it seems like they have the upper hand and the blood god's going to come forward, Conan's son, Conan Jr., Conan the Second, which is actually his name, he comes in with the Black Dragons, who Conan's elite fighting force, his royal guard. They've tracked him down, and the whole point of this story turns out to be the blood of Conan is what will save the world. It could have been what condemned the world, but through his son, it's what the legacy is going to go on. And so Junior shows up. He's got his own little sword. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I tracked you down, taught you, used all the tricks you taught me." Brought those dudes with the cool helmets. They're going to like fight those guys. We're going to go home. We're going to chill this out. But Conan's not having that either. He's Conan. He's not going to leave the fight. He knows that this is for the sake of the world. So he's battered. He's bloody. He's post-dead. Ish. Like maybe that's what you call it because he came back. I don't know. Yeah. The post-dead. I feel like that should be a phrase. And he's going to lead his team into battle. And as the blood god continues to try to climb up, climb out, and they just keep fighting these twins, Conan eventually has to just be done with it. He reaches that point that Conan so often reaches where kind of the mechanics of the fight, everything they've been trying to do, the strategy, just he throws it to the ground and he just grabs one of these blood vessels, jumps into the hole, and starts hacking these blood vessels, these tethers that are allowing this blood god to come forward. And eventually he just wins. Like he
just wins.
He just wins. Somebody drop kicks the twins into the hole. He breaks the bungee cord. Blood God falls into the hole, and you get this really, really great scene of, we know Conan the murderer. We know Conan the thief. We know Conan the king. We know Conan the barbarian. Very rarely, or if ever, have we seen Conan the father.
Yeah.
And so you get this moment of his son helping him where he's taught this son another valuable lesson, kind of the core of what makes Conan. And you get a kind of cliched ending where they ride off into the sunset on horses, but it really is a fantastic bookend to this story, to this excitement, to this never ceasing just pounding of Conan lore that Jason Aaron has been marching to this entire time. And he explains to his son, you never stop being what you are. And because the son's like, we're going to get you back to the home. Your days of wander and adventure are over. And Conan just laughs from the back of his horse. And then, as in all these new Conan books, the actual comic itself ends with the final chapter of one of the new prose stories they've been telling, which I need to go back and read all in one. But this one's by John C. Hawking, of course dedicated to Roy Thomas. And I love that they're putting all those in the back of Conan. So that's it. That's the story. Like, he started off with Conan, fucking the wrong woman, as he is wont to do, to a blood god in a pit with angry twins.
Yeah. And Conan is a father and a king.
So have we ever seen Conan as a father before?
Not that I recall.
I can't remember it either. So it makes me wonder where the story is going now, and the fact that Jason Aaron is going to do King Conan lets me believe that he's going to explore that more in that story.
I hope so.
With Prince Conan.
Yeah.
So they call him Conan the Second in this, but I'm trying to look up, maybe see if I can
I think Conan called him Khan.
Yeah, Khan, Conn.
So yeah, his name is Conan the Second, but Conan called him Khan.
So Conan II, also called Khan, is King Conan's firstborn son, with wife Zenobia, and heir to the throne of Aquilonia.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I missed that one, and I read a lot of Conan. So I knew I didn't think he was a new character just because the internet didn't blow up, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
They nailed Conan in the spirit of Conan. I cannot think of a better team to do this. Mahmud Asrar's art on this, he pays a lot of homage. He pays a lot of homage to the folks that came before him, to the Basimas of the world. He pays a lot of homage, like his painted style. If it doesn't evoke some of the feelings you have around those great Conan covers, check your pulse. There's a lot of Frazetta in here.
Yeah, there really is.
It's just, I'm always curious what the books we're reading now, which ones we'll remember in 20 years. I've read a lot of, and not to disparage any other great comic writers or comic artists, I've read a lot of Conan. I don't remember a lot of Conan stories, especially from my lifetime and, post 1995. I don't remember a lot of Conan stories. They're kind of just come and go. I feel like I'll remember this one. I feel like this is a story that will kind of last in the zeitgeist of the Robert E. Howard legacy. I don't know if you guys feel that way or not.
Yeah, I certainly do.
Yeah, I feel like this is, it makes me feel like Conan's back at home, back at Marvel where he belongs.
Yeah.
I didn't love a whole lot of the stuff that happened in the Dark Horse.
Well, a lot of that stuff wasn't that it was poorly executed. Most of that stuff that I read anyway felt like it could have been any character in that place.
That's exactly right. It didn't feel Conan.
Yeah. They didn't really utilize the character to make the stories as interesting as they could be.
Yeah.
And a great example of that, and what I expect and what I hope is that we have more single issue little episodes in Conan's past, and like what Jason Aaron did, the one where he spends all of the money he recently earned to hire a bunch of prostitutes just so he could access somebody he wanted to kill.
Yeah,
wonderful.
That was
wonderful.
Great.
I mean, that kind of stuff I love.
Yeah, I think it's like in those old Dark Horse issues, so much of the time they're focusing on the Barbarian or
the world,
the King or the Slayer, and they're not focusing on the first word on those titles, which is Conan.
Yeah.
And Robert E. Howard gave us, in many ways, he gave us a vague gate to walk into Conan through, and then Roy Thomas just scattered it with so many things. It's almost like it reminds me of kind of the way we do Star Wars. There's so many things in that history that you can pick and choose from to just create these brand new stories that are stemmed in Conan legacy and Conan lore, or Red Sonja legacy or Red Sonja lore, or all of these things. And I think so many times where writers miss the mark is they don't latch on to that little nugget. They don't latch on to that one thing that roots it into Conan. They just write a story about a really cool barbarian, which could be, any D&D game ever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Jason Aaron, I don't know if he drank Roy Thomas's bathwater or what, but he took all of that, those little nuggets, those little strands, and he wove it all together in this story. So you're not just getting one place of the history bleeding through. You're getting so much of it.
Well, at least my opinion and my experience in reading Jason Aaron's work by and large is he writes stories based on the characters themselves, not so much the overriding arc.
Right.
He centers his stories around what the person is he's writing about. Like, for example, Southern Bastards. That's all about just what a bastard the main character is. I mean, the football thing is basically happening in the background to exploit what kind of person Coach Boss is.
Yeah.
That's what that story is.
Right.
As opposed to, say, a story like Chew, which is about, what's going on in that world. The characters are very good, but it's not really exploiting who Tommy Chew is.
Yeah.
So that Jason Aaron, everything I've read, I get that feeling from him very strongly, and that's why Conan is so good a character for him to write, because that's where you're going to get a unique Conan story that's different from any given Barbarian story.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so it's character versus plot,
Right.
but he doesn't go. One of the things I think that has made Jason Aaron's career, and I think why people love him the way they do, he is not so character driven in the sense that he doesn't write like Tom King. Like Tom King in half of his books barely have. I mean, Mr. Miracle doesn't. It has like a hint of a plot, but he also doesn't write. Jason Aaron does not write stories that are just nothing but timeline, and so many artists do. Like so many artists, it's just the story. And there's not a lot of character development. I think Jason Aaron tethers himself kind of just to the left of that, where he's diving into these characters and he's meticulous at his research, but there's still enough of a story to drag you along.
Of course.
And I think there are people who love Jason Aaron who maybe don't like Tom King for that reason, because Tom King isn't giving them enough to kind of trudge along with, or these other characters aren't giving enough persona from other writers. Honestly, off the top of my head, I like Charles Soule comes to mind, where it's just all plot all the time. It's very little.
Unless you read the Star Wars stuff.
Well, that's true, and I haven't, so I can't speak to that.
But you are right on his superhero stuff. It's straight up the plot, as opposed to the character.
And I think Jason Aaron kind of sits right in that valley, but ties on to the both. And I think that's what's kind of made his career. I think that also might be why I don't like his Avengers run as much as I thought it was, because I feel like the Avengers run is just more plot.
I don't get any character exploitation from his Avengers stuff, with the very little exceptions. A few She-Hulk things here and there really felt, but other than that, I mean, reading his Avengers run, I got no additional insight, say, from Captain America.
Yeah.
I got no additional insight on Blade. I mean, he wasn't exploiting those characters very much at all, and that's why I dropped the series. It just wasn't nothing in there was really hooking me.
So I guess that begs the question, kind of, are we going to see, maybe we need to weigh his team books against some of his solo series, as to see, does he do better with a focal point than he does with a cast, maybe?
Thus far, yes. Thus far, his solo stuff is better than his team stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he doesn't have some great team stuff in him.
Well, Southern Bastards is not a team book per se, but there is enough of a cast there that he's writing multiple people. But I don't know. Maybe that's a weird thing. Yeah.
People created by him. I think that makes it a little bit easier to delve into the character of those people versus a team superhero book with people that have been around for a while. Something that, not to go too far off on a tangent, but I didn't realize this, but the reason in Avengers that Tony Stark won't leave his helmet, did you guys realize that's the AI Tony Stark in that book?
No.
That he has cloned himself and put his AI on his clone. And that's something to me that Jason Aaron, being this character-driven writer, should have explored that more, instead of just giving us hints like he won't leave his helmet, he's in the hot tub and he won't set his helmet down.
Well, so yes, I agree with that. The other side of it, and this is an issue with a shared universe where you have multiple writers writing multiple books and doing everything. This is where I miss the editorial notes. So I don't necessarily need Jason Aaron to dive into detail about why that is, because especially if that's not what's happening in his book. Yeah. That's what is it Dan Slott who's still writing?
I dropped off Iron Man.
Oh,
yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's still Slott.
I know Dan Slott's got an upcoming Iron Man book.
Yeah.
I know that.
Well, and I'm sure that's where it's explored, but that's where editorial notes would come in so handy, and we used to get those all the time. I mean, and you're seeing them a little bit in other things, and it depends on what book you get, but
you could explore that just enough that, because they talked about him not setting down his helmet.
Yeah,
they could have explored that a little bit. But,
now, granted, in that particular issue, I didn't really care what was going on, because Tony Stark and Thor and Captain were naked in the hot tub, and that
and then She-Hulk
filled 4 of my fantasies.
So that's a really good example of an issue where he was really exploiting the characters themselves when that was going on, because on the surface, I should have hated that issue.
It was a quiet moment.
You give me an issue about them hanging out in a hot tub. That sounds like I'm going to hate that with every fiber of my being, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
Because the exchange between the characters and the things he was having them do. He's so good at that.
But see, you understood exactly why Thor wasn't setting down his hammer. He had just got it back, and that was even explored in that book. But you didn't understand why.
Yeah.
Tony Stark wouldn't set down.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's a little hiccup there, and again, I think a lot of that is solved with editorial notes or editor. Yeah, I mean, but like I said, a one-liner would work.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did thinking of this Conan the Barbarian as a whole? How did the broken narrative, the broken timeline work for you guys?
Loved it.
Yeah, it was done really well. You know, you can do broken timelines very well, or you can do them very poorly. Very rarely are they done somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Westworld, the television show, I think did a fantastic job at the broken timeline, because it was happening and you kind of had hints of it, but you didn't know for sure. And then it all tied together at the end. I think it did it wonderfully. Witcher, as you stated earlier, had some problems with it. This story, to me, did it very, very well.
Yeah.
You knew, you could see the time difference and what was going on.
Yeah, I think because each issue they bookended it. Each issue they start you off in one place, you go to the middle, and then you end up there. Except for this last issue, because the story is a story. Right. But I think doing that, like 1 or 2 pages in each issue, really helps as a mechanism. It helps create a comfortable space where you know your timeline jumping.
Well, and for me in comic books, I'm really notorious about not reading they have the little block at the top that says then and then now. I will miss that probably 80% of the time and have to go back and look at it and realize that there's a time, because I'll be like, what the hell just happened? And I'll go back and see those. But even without catching any of that, even if that was in this book, I don't know if it was or not, because it was never hard for me to follow what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's the key to a time jumping story, in my opinion. Make it easy to follow.
Yeah. No, I mean, I 100% agree. I get annoyed when I don't get those transition markers, and sometimes you don't need them. But if unless you're drawing Conan, baby faced and young and fit in one page, and you flip the page and he's old and haggard, you don't know. But in so many times you get these characters who aren't drawn much different. You can't really tell how they age. If you don't give me that marker, I can figure it out. I'm not saying I can't. Like, I'm not. Context
usually
clues
you realize something's not adding up.
But I do think, as far as like fluidity, and you don't want, as a writer, you don't want that to be what your reader gets hung up on.
Right.
You don't want your reader to have to go, wait a minute, what? Let me flip back 4 pages and figure this out. You are asking your reader to do work. As readers, it's incumbent on us to carry a little bit of the weight for the narrative to understand what it is. That's not the work you want them to do.
Don't make it hard.
Yeah, you want, as far as the narrative flow, that's not where you want to trip your reader up at, or where you want them to focus on.
Right.
If you're building up metaphor and you're trying to tell anything else, plot points or tricks, this, that, and the other, that's not where you want to trip your reader up at. And they didn't do that in this book, and I think that they handled it very well.
This has been 12 of my most favorite issues of Conan that I've read in forever. I mean, going back to when I was a kid.
Well, that's saying a lot, because you're old as shit.
Yeah, right? Going back to when I was a kid, probably.
Reading those stone tablets of the
Conan. Yes. Conan the Stone Tablet. To me, it 12 of the best issues I've read in a long time.
Weighing this against the Savage Sword, the other book that started about the same time. I know when these first came out, I think there were, and I think we talked about this before, I'm not sure. I know a lot of folks were feeling Savage Sword because it didn't jump around narratively.
The first arc of Savage Sword was fantastic. And then it's kind of fallen off for me.
Yeah.
So,
the creative team has changed.
Yeah, they change it every story. Yeah. So, a thing that has me a little hesitant is one of my least favorite in Savage Sword was the Jim Zub story.
Yeah.
And him taking over Barbarian has me. Now, he's a fantastic writer. I've seen him do other things fantastic. So I hope that he finds his footing with Conan the Barbarian, because it'd really be disappointing to.
Well, he did The Serpent. Was it Jim Zub who wrote the Serpent series that you really liked, Matt?
So I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
What I really enjoyed out of it the most was how he wrote Conan himself. He really, it felt just like Jason Aaron writing Conan's dialogue. It felt perfect. Yeah, so
Because I actually didn't read that series.
Yeah,
So.
Overall, the series itself really didn't end strong, but
Well, it's got a follow-up coming to it.
yeah. But as far as the characters, he wrote all the characters very well. He wrote Solomon Kane really well.
Yeah.
It's really entertaining to read. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Jim Zub run. I'm going to be optimistic about it.
I think
I'm going to be optimistic until it's not. You know what I mean? Until there's a reason not to be. I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
So I think with the Jim, like I love Jim Zub as a writer. Like his Marvel work he did with the Champions that he did?
Yeah, Champions.
I think it's great work.
And Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons.
That was amazing. And I hate Rick and Morty. But he when I think of his Conan book, like the one where they like made the game and it was a gambling thing, like that is something that was all plot and it could have been anybody and not Conan to me. And so, but I am sticking on this. I'm going to stick with the Conan Barbarian title, and kind of like Matt said, I'm optimistic. So it's always weird because we talk about new books as a roundtable. We say, is this going to make it your pull list? Well, this is the end of an arc, so I guess the question:
are you staying on?
Yeah, and Matt answered it. I answered it. Craig, are you staying on it?
Oh yeah, I'm staying on
Okay.
it. I'm definitely going to. Jim Zub's a good enough writer that I'm going to give it enough time to see how it plays out. But
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the artist that's going to be on this book. This what did I say his name was? Roger Antonio. I've heard the name. I just off the top of my head, I could Google it if I was energetic and not lazy, but but I'm not. So
yeah, I haven't either. But I feel like they're probably going to put someone solid on Conan.
I really want the hardcover of this. This is something I might double dip on.
You think they're going to give a hardcover?
I think they are.
Jason Aaron run?
I think they are. I haven't seen it in solicitations yet, and it may have been in there. I just may have missed it. So
I bet at some point we get it.
If you have flipped to the previews catalog and you're like, oh Caleb, you missed this. Hey, drop me a line on our Facebook page and say, hey dude, like pay more attention, you piece of shit. This happened and you skipped it. They're giving you what you want and you just aren't taking it. So and you can do that on our Facebook page. I'll let you.
That's kind of extreme.
Maybe that should be an email.
Strange invitation you put out there.
Yeah.
Look, I just want more
Call
people
me a piece of shit, please.
I just want more people to talk to
You
us.
have weird fetishes. Not that we're fetish shaming, but
Yes, Daddy. Snap, crackle, and pop.
have people call you piece of shit.
Well, all right. So we all love this roundtable book. Again, go check it out. I know that the trades are going to be out. Check it out in hardcover. Read it. So find a way to read it. You're going to love it. I think you really will.
Yeah.
But now that that's over, I want to know what Matt read this week that I didn't read. Or maybe I did. Who knows? Who can say?
So I actually read this a couple of weeks ago, and put off talking about it because nobody was reading it. But I decided I'd given you people enough time.
What do you mean, you people?
Yeah. The book I'm going to talk about is DC Comics, The Batman's Grave #4. The series this is a limited series by Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch, and Alex Sinclair. So I'm not going to go really back into what has happened before this because I want you to go back and read it. Mm-hmm. But in this issue, it starts out Batman is following a lead on an individual known as Dr. Helpham. And as he drives to this doctor's apartment that he has located, in which the doctor lives, Alfred is scoping the layout and the occupancy of the apartment via a drone. And he reports to Batman that there are 4 individuals present and that 3 of them are, quote, running hot with very high pulse rates, suggesting significant chemical refreshment, are Alfred's words. Refreshment. I thought that was an interesting way to describe this. Batman recalls fighting an associate of the doctor's in the recent past and that his opponent was definitely on some kind of performance enhancer. And as he arrives at the building, Alfred asks him, "What are you going to do, sir?" "Wildly overcompensate," replies Batman. And the way he says it, and he's holding his fist up in the air. It's like, oh, yes, please. So, Batman begins by blowing the front door off its hinges, but at the same time exploding the east wall of the apartment building, momentarily confusing the occupants of where he will be entering from. As he comes through the hole in the wall, what follows are 12 pages of little to no dialogue and excellently illustrated tactical hand-to-hand fighting violence.
As only Warren, not only Warren Ellis, but as Warren Ellis does the best.
As he is noted to do.
Yeah.
so much of the book is and again, I've said this before on the show, I'd really like to see the notes when he does these things.
Yeah.
Because these 12 pages are enlightening especially to a Batman fan, to see him go into a room and kick some ass, not deliver any snarky, not go on about, say, his love life, for example.
Yeah, don't write him as Spider-Man. Write him as Batman.
I mean, he goes in and he is taking no prisoners, and it is wonderful to see. I probably read these 12 pages 3 times. Is just awesome. Just dissecting, the tactical annihilation that Batman is delivering. Some of the things that happen in these 12 pages of note. Batman delivers several kicks to the face. Some of these are heel kicks to the mouth.
Ooh,
nice.
Yes, I mean, this is brutal.
That's some dental work.
Yes, and the teeth go a-flying. And he, like at another moment, he drops an elbow to the back of the neck of a fallen opponent.
Nice.
He knocks the guy down, then he drops all his weight. A 265-pound man, elbow to the back of the neck.
Nice.
Just brutal. He stomps one man in the mouth as he lays on the floor. Guys, I'm telling you, man, this is food for the soul.
Food for the soul.
As I like to say. One of these guys he's fighting, that he's delivering some brutality to, gets back up and says to Batman, "I got a great doctor. I don't feel pain no more." And Batman quickly says, "Ask him if he has anything for blindness," and gouges his eyes with his fingers. Oh, God. Yes, I know. Isn't this great?
Matt, you worry me sometimes.
It's wonderful. So,
yeah, don't ever piss Matt off.
No.
in another segment, one opponent, he finishes this other guy off by breaking his arm.
It's one of those stories?
Breaking his knee, breaking his jaw, before punching him down punching him down, like the guy's fallen and he's punching down to the back of his head, just, knocking
Driving
him to
him
the
into the
floor,
ground.
driving him into the floor. So he then goes on to calmly walk across the room to begin to interrogate this doctor that's also in the room. The doctor lets Batman know that there are people after him as this doctor pulls up 3 syringes full of glowing liquid and injects himself in the neck. Mm-hmm. So the issue ends. Batman, tells Alfred, "Call the paramedics. I'm going to try to resuscitate this guy before I leave." And then he heads back to the Batcave and lets it be known that his next objective is to find out who is after him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, I'm loving this series, man. This is so well done.
I've got it.
You
all.
are
I'm
missing
kind of
out. If
waiting
you are
for
not
it.
reading this, shame on you. You do not love yourself.
I've got it all. I'm waiting for it to finish, and then I'm going to read it in a.
Oh man.
See, this is one of those situations where I'm just a glutton for punishment, because I knew I would love this series, and I still passed on it because I was just like, okay, I've read Warren and Hitch before.
That is not an argument not to do it.
I know.
That's a strange thing,
Right?
Right?
I missed it. Well, and it's so funny, like to hear you talk about this now, because at the same time I'm reading Warren and Ellis and Hitch's authority work, where they really do a lot of these same thing, and I get so much, and it's one of those things that never gets old.
Oh man.
I regret missing this. Slap my hand. Slap it.
Oh, I can't. I'll do it too hard and won't be able to finish the show.
Walk around with the cats. So,
That's right. You should. You
Yeah, I
should
know
be
it.
feeling this way.
I do.
I will finish it when it's completed.
Yeah. I love how much you're loving this book.
I do too.
Wonderful.
Just brutal.
Read it, kids.
Do it.
Read it, kids. Maybe not the kids.
It's for the kids.
This
This is the world they need to grow up in.
no, Matt. This is not the way.
It could be the way.
I mean, if that happens, we're gonna have to have the way. This is how Mandalorians happen. Who do you think the big bad is gonna be?
This feels like the big bad is going to be new. This feels like a creator.
Yeah.
Unique creator creation.
I mean, the
what it feels.
chemicals sound a bit like Bane, like Venom. So I'm wondering if that, but who knows?
Well, like as I'm listening to you tell the story, and as you told me a little bit about some of the prior issues, like Ellis is doing this thing where he alludes to other Batman villains, but he never really gives it to you, and I just wonder, he's such a good storyteller.
Hell yeah.
So because you live in my heart and I want you to be happy and I want you to have nice things, while you were telling me about this, I was searching for Warren Ellis scripts online, and they are aplenty. So if you want to see the notes and you want to see his scripts, number one, you can go to warrenellis.com. And there's a list for scripts on there. He's got stuff like Desolation Jones and Ministry of Space. I think Fell's on there. So he's got that you can actually visit, and you can see how he writes those scenes. And that's just on warrenellis.com. So as I Googled, there's a whole laundry list of places where you can go find his scripts. So if you want to see that, I would check that out.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to do that.
Yeah, and that's just a good note for anybody in general. If you're wanting to learn to write comics, if you're going to learn to do this, go read other people's scripts. I know guys like Justin Jordan puts a lot of his scripts online. If you get some of these hardback collections and other stuff of just anything, you can go to your local comic shop and they'll have a 50% off rack, and you open it up and they'll have the scripts in the back of it. That's how you learn to write comics. Yep. And I say that as somebody who's not good at writing comics, but that's how you do it. So the people say. What'd you read this week, Craig?
So I read a silent issue as well. I know yours was only 50% silent, but mine was almost all silent. Ooh. And this is Redneck number 25, nice. Skybound imprint of Image Comics. And it's, of course, Donny Cates writing it. Lissandro Esterin is the artist. D. Cunif is the colorist. And Joe Sabino is the letterist, even though Joe Sabino had very little to do in this book.
Right.
So I know, Caleb, you started reading this book.
I'm still on it.
Are you still on it? Or you
have not read this issue yet.
Okay, well, I'm getting ready to spoil shit for you.
Spoil away.
So,
also,
you're not reading it, right?
We probably should have done a spoiler warning, but we didn't.
So, Caleb, if you remember in the last issue, it ended with Greg confronting Demas, or meeting Demas, the first vampire, with Grandpa walking back in. And Grandpa is owed a favor by Demas, which is the only reason why Greg wasn't killed. Okay? So this story starts off with Demas is telling his story to Greg, but he's not telling it physically. He's projecting his life story as a vampire into Greg's head. And the very first page is a double page spread, hello Wendy, of Jesus dead on the cross and a group of people walking up to pull him down off of the cross. Biblically, we would know that, two of the men are Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, the wizard rat from Secret of Nim. Maybe not that guy, but definitely Nicodemus. But
that's a better story, though.
So it's unclear whether, Demas is one of these two people or not. It never really says whether he was Joseph or Nicodemus. He just goes by Demas. And they pull Jesus down. He pulls the nail out of his hand. And you have this great kind of foreshadowing of the first vampire holding a wooden stake. And it's kind of like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And it's going along, and they're cleaning him up, and he's got a bucket of blood. And you start getting some biblical scriptures in the book. And it's like the first one you get is Leviticus 17:14, which talks about blood being the life of every creature and forbids the Israelites from ever eating any blood out of anything.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, and you keep in the background seeing this like fiery horned figure, which is obviously the devil, but you never says it, of course, but they get him kind of cleaned up, and Demas is carrying the bucket of Jesus's blood out to pour it out in the desert. And you get the scripture, John 6:54, whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on that last day. And the devil standing there just kind of smiling, and Demas drinks the blood. and immediately grows fangs and his eyes turn red and the sun starts burning him and he takes off running back to the cave and he kills the other guy that's in there helping him. Well, that other guy is Grandpa. So Grandpa is, which, if you remember in issue 24, one of the things we found out that Grandpa was Daemus's first vampire he sired. So all the way back to Christ, these two have been vampires.
Wow.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the story that is told. I really love silent issues when it's not done as a gimmick, when it's done as a thoughtful part of the story, which this is, because he wouldn't sit there necessarily and tell him the story if he has this power to project it into his mind.
Right.
And so Cates really gives them the chance to shine, his art team a chance to shine. And if you've been reading this book at all, you know that the art team is absolutely fantastic on it. And they do not drop the ball at all in this book.
Yeah.
From the very first double-page spread all the way to the end, absolutely beautiful. The color palettes used in this book, as they have for the first 24 issues, absolutely match the tone of what's going on throughout the book. Just absolutely a beautiful book. It ends with the only dialogue in the entire book is Daemus says, "Do you want to see more?" And Greg says, "Yes." So we're going to see more of what's happened in Daemus's life. I think this entire story arc of 6 is going to be Daemus's story.
Now, is this so you're saying there's 6 more issues of this?
I believe so, of this story arc. 5 more after this one.
Yeah, because I know
they took a break leading up to this.
Cates was saying that he was getting ready to wrap up this story at one point. Or he had an ending in mind. I was wondering if this was it.
I don't think this may be leading to the ending, but I think and this may be 4 issues for the story arc, but I think we're going to get this whole story arc is going to be Daemus's story.
Okay.
And probably Grandpa's as well.
Cates is so damn good.
It's
frustrating.
And one of the reasons I chose this book is because I had to give him credit for not putting Cosmic Ghost Rider in this book. Every freaking book he writes, he puts him in there. But this book has been great since the very beginning. It's Donny Cates at his best.
Oh, this book made me fall in love with Donny Cates.
Yeah.
This book is what made me excited about Donny Cates becoming one of the premier writers for Marvel.
Yeah.
And then he just proceeded to his credit, and this is not a knock, and I've said this before, he just doesn't write things I particularly lean into.
Right.
Now he's writing Thor, and the first issue, I haven't read the second issue yet. The first issue was hot. I mean, it was awesome. So he's a talented man.
Yeah.
It's just,
and this book is just, whether you like vampires or not, I mean, it started off as one thing, and it's something completely different now. And the fact that Grandpa, who started off as this decrepit old vampire that was in a wheelchair and couldn't even support himself, took off and destroyed, lit himself on fire basically to destroy all of the cops that were surrounding their house, is now back in a younger man's body and, walking with a cane and looks like an old Southern gentleman. It's really good. In last issue, Bartlett got wings. I mean, so much is happening.
I love Bartlett. That dude cracks me up. It's such a good series.
It really is. It's been good since first issue, and this was absolutely no exception to that.
Well, and it's really cool seeing Cates because, look, Cates' biggest paycheck coming from Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's not pretend, I don't know what he's making, but that's where the bulk of his
I'm sure
money's
he's not
coming from.
making more on Redneck than he is on any of his Marvel
But it's still
books.
cool to see him taking chances. Like, he's not writing this book off, which is what a lot of people do when they get they're on one of the big 2 books. They start
Let's just
caring
wrap
less
this
about
story
their
up.
yeah. So it's good to see him taking chances because, dude, silent issues are not easy to.
It's not.
To write.
And again, if they're done well and they're not, I don't like them as a gimmick, but I do like them when they make sense in the story.
Yeah.
12 issues of Batman fighting without commenting, that makes sense within the story. 22 pages of a mind projecting story being told into somebody's head makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and when I'm thinking about the people that I know that have written silent issues, I mean, like big names. I mean, you're talking about James Stokoe. I mean, you're talking about Richard Delgado, who did
Larry Hama.
Larry Hama
notably has the biggest, most popular silent issue ever.
Steranko.
I mean, like it's no small feat.
It's
like,
not.
And lots of people, when you do that, you take a chance because it's very easy to fail.
Well, and you have to get over your ego to do it. A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah, and you have to really trust your art team. Mm-hmm. You know, and obviously, if you're 24 issues in on a series and you don't trust them, then you probably need to wrap up the series anyways. But you have to have that trust that the art's going to be there.
Well, and that's why I think most of the time so many silent issues come from people who don't have an art team. It's they're writing and they're drawing at the same time.
Yeah.
Shaolin Cowboy. What is his? My brain just shut off.
I can't think of his name either.
Like that guy is just unreal. And again, Stokoe. Delgado, he's the writer and the artist on those dinosaur books. Have you ever read any of his stuff?
I have not.
It's the Age of Reptiles books. So he picks a time in history and finds out what dinosaurs were alive, and then he writes a story about it. It's like The Land Before Time without words, with art, in my opinion, more detailed art. But it's fun stuff. I need to get you some copies of that. I've got them at the house. I will bring them to you.
Yeah, this was just a really good, fun issue. I enjoyed it. I'm a sucker for vampire origin stories. Mm-hmm. The
sucker for the vampires.
Right. No, I did not. What you did. A really bad Dracula movie was Dracula 2000, but I love the origin of the fact that it was Judas. Mm-hmm. Judas became Dracula. I dig when they kind of put a twist on that origin of the vampires, and this was very well thought out. You tie it in biblically to the blood of Christ is life, and it worked. It worked well. So
that's awesome. I can't wait to read it. It's in my, like I said, it's on. I've got it at home.
It won't take you long to read.
Well, no.
There's 2 scriptures and 2 dialogue boxes in the entire thing. So.
See, it's interesting though, because silent issues take me, like I spend more time with them.
Looking at them because
you're reading the line.
I promise you're going to open up the first page to the double page spread and be like, oh my God, what happened?
Well, all right, I guess it's my turn.
I was just I grabbed it off the shelf.
That's what's great about doing the show in a comic book shop. It's because we can just reach over and snag it. Dude, those colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's showing us the double page spread from Redneck, and you should go check that out. So today is February 2nd, which means it's the second day of Black History Month. In comics, as we strive to make comics more inclusive, we want to do that with this podcasters, and we want to do that with all things. I think it's important to go back and look at some of these books that maybe not quote unquote comics households names. The history of comics mostly just a bunch of old white guys, or as far as famous comics goes, a bunch of old white guys from New York. Yeah, I mean, of Jewish origin, yes, but other than that, they're very limited in their diversity. But that does not mean there has not been some extraordinary work being done by people of color throughout comics history or throughout literary history. I put up a post this morning. Every time I read a James Baldwin book, I learn something new. And I think it's important to go back and to really look at those. And as readers, to give them, just because they weren't readily available doesn't mean they're not iconic in their own ways, and that doesn't mean that they're not important to the culture and to the comics culture as a whole. And so in 2017, this book came out, and it's a book I've been wanting to talk about on the show for a while, so I figured why not talk about it today of all days. And I was actually going to do a different book, but as I was sitting there, I was like, no, this is the perfect time to do that. And this book it was a graphic novel, and it's called Kindred. And this is an adaptation of Octavia E. Butler's novel of the same name. If you're not familiar with Octavia E. Butler, one of the pioneering black women in science fiction. And she doesn't, other than people who just know her or seek her out, she doesn't get a lot of attention. Like when you think about science fiction and the people who really built up that medium, it's very limited, and it's very hard. I know, Matt, we've talked before about how you're looking out, you were looking for adventure and fantasy books written by people who weren't just white guys, and they're hard to come by. But Octavia E. Butler is, if that's what you're looking for, then she is a name that you really need to look for and read. Well, this adaptation was drawn by John Jennings and Damian Duffy. And so, and like I said, it won an Eisner in 2018, so it's been around for a little bit. But the story focuses around this young woman named Dana. And Dana and her it's like 1975. Dana and her white boyfriend live in San Francisco, and they're trying to make a life as an interracial couple. They're dealing with all the things that was modern at that time. All of a sudden, something happens, and Dana just blinks. She blinks out of existence, and she finds herself in antebellum South on a plantation, and there's this young white boy who's been hurt. And so she's going to help this kid. She's not going to let the kid sit there and suffer. And as she does that, she starts to take a look around, and she realizes, it's that we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto moment, where she realizes this is not only I got transported to a place that I don't know, to a time I don't know. It's antebellum South. This is pre-Civil War South.
Yeah.
And what she has to do in this book is learn to survive. And this is even with a very 1975 mentality. She's exposed to all of these things, to history that she's not being taught in school, to hatred that she knows of, but that is more raw than what she expects. And, of course, you're wondering, how did she get here? Why did she pop through time and space? She's tethered to this young boy. And what happens throughout this story, because she eventually goes back. Once he's out of danger, once he's taken care of, she bounces back. And so, she's there. It's basically each time she's got to complete a mission, quote unquote.
Quantum leap.
Yeah, very, very, a little bit like that. And so as she does this, she reaches a certain point and she's able to go back. And she's telling her boyfriend, who, like I said, this white guy, she's very traumatized by all this. She has no idea why she was taken back to this, to this plantation, these slave owners, or what's going to happen to the little boy. And so she's wondering this, and a few weeks later, it happens again. But when she goes back, he's a lot older. It's the same little boy, but he's all grown up. And he's been taught to live in this world. He's been taught to be the plantation owner's son. And he views things differently than what, there's no empathy there. But he still remembers this black woman who helped him. And so they're planted a seed which he's struggling with. And, she's trying to seat herself in a mentality of, number one, I've got to survive in this place. Number two, I remember when he was a kid, this is a learned behavior. I have to not to forget that. Maybe if I'm going to be here, I might as well do some good. And the book as a whole, it's a quick read. You can read it in an afternoon. It dives back and forth into some really surreal issues. It's an excellent work. And as far as, I hate time travel. I hate time travel stories. I've said that on time. This works though. This works so well because it's not, the time travel it's part of the plot, but it's not the plot. It's just going back and forth. Eventually she travels back in time with her boyfriend, and she starts to realize that this boy that she rescued, a white boy, is in love with one of the younger black women and just does some monstrous things to show her that he loves her. So, you're dealing with issues beyond just race. You're dealing with issues of toxic masculinity. You're dealing with issues of learned behavior and how to overcome them. And even if you can overcome them, and, how that translates to our society today with interracial couples. Mm-hmm. It's stunning work. And it's driven me to read more of Octavia Butler's work. I know she's got another adaptation coming out in the near future. The artwork in this tears at your heart. They don't belabor you with getting into the weeds on the details. Some things are left purposefully vague. It reminds me a little bit of the artwork in March, but and maybe that's just because of the mindset I was reading this, but I think there is a connection to that, a little bit of a Matt Kent vibe to it as well, but with heavier colors. It's emotive. It's emotive as all hell, and it is not black and white. It is not cookie cutter. It deals with some heavy nuances of all of these really topics that we're still dealing with today. And this book was, written 60 years ago, 50 years ago, that we haven't gotten over yet. That we're not sure how to have these conversations. And so this is not a book that this. If you're of a persuasion that is not my own. If you're of a more conservative persuasion, you're like, I'm not going to read a book that just wants you to it's just going to shit on white men and stuff. This book's not doing that. It's more nuanced than that. It's more complicated of an issue than that. It's also, it's not whitewashing though.
Well, unlike most people tend to believe all of these situations are much more nuanced than
absolutely.
than just SJWs trying to push an agenda.
Right. And in her work, Octavia Butler really works well with that, and she ages her characters because time works differently. She gets into the sci-fi mechanics of it, of how time in one place and traveling through time, how it affects the future, and what it's like to have a fixed point in time that you can come back to where you've changed in the past, but you haven't changed in the present. So that's where the sci-fi comes in, because on this time travel, and she does it in a way that actually makes me like it, which is a feat, because as a story mechanic, like I said, I'm just not into it. But Damian Duffy needs a lot of credit for adapting this into script form, because it's not easy to adapt prose into a comic. I mean, people try all the time. And it's not easy to adapt something that's so emotive, something that carries so much weight, into a message that is ascertainable by everybody. And it truly is. And now, you always run into an issue when you're talking about books like this, or at least I do. Look, I'm white bread. Like, we all know that I'm just a white dude. This book was not written for me. This book is not trying to teach white people. This book is for an African American audience. It's for that. But I think as readers, especially readers, if we want to become more empathetic, if we want to learn how to make friends who don't look like us, who don't love like us, who don't live like us, and if we want to learn to live in a multicultural world and truly blend as a society and truly share one another's experiences, or just to appreciate how, like, my privilege as a white dude doesn't diminish my own struggles, but it just means I had struggles in a different way that I benefited from, as far as it didn't push me down. I think you have to read stories written by people who aren't written for you, but it also doesn't hold your hand. Like, the book is not going to take time to explain. There's some moments in here where the main character Dana is dealing with her hair. I'm a white dude. I have white dude hair. I don't know what it's like to deal with long hair. I don't know what it's like to deal with African American hair. It doesn't take my hand and explain to me why these things are done, because it's none of my fucking business. It's a reality. It's a reality that I have to observe. I'm not owed an explanation. I'm not owed an explanation for the reason that folks feel the way they do. But you can observe it, and in observing it, you can kind of get an understanding of the attachment, the social attachment that goes, and the social stigmas that go into these things. And as we're entering into Black History Month, where we're remembering, at least here in the United States, we're remembering these figures from our past that were glossed over or were mistreated, or that fought, scraped tooth, nail, and blood for civil rights that inevitably make us all freer. I think it's important to go back and, take a moment, and you shouldn't just limit these. You shouldn't put brackets around February and say, oh, it's Black History Month, so this is the time I'm going to read, stories by people who aren't like me, by African American writers or artists. But you should do it all year long, but especially now is when you go back and you revisit some of these things from our past, which weren't readily available. They weren't promoted. You didn't get the big publishers. They weren't put on framed shelves in bookstores. You had to seek them out, and they were very niche. And a lot of the reasons they were very niche and segregated was due to underlying social racism. And I think it's important to go back and revisit them now to see what they said, and to see how they said it, and to see how they were saying shit 60 years ago that we still hadn't learned yet. And Octavia Butler does that in her work. Damian Duffy and John Jennings really bring that out in their comic adaptation of this. It's something that really, really tugs at your soul if you got one. So I think it's an excellent read.
Well, that limits half of our audience.
Look, just some of them have sold theirs, I think. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think it's important work, and I think. Yeah, I think it's very much worth the read. And whether or not I think it is or not doesn't matter to anybody else. If it's worth the read for you, go read it. I just think a lot of our readers, listeners, a lot of people who are in comics would do well to take a moment to go read some of this. And so I think I'm going to try to, with my limited time in February, really focus on some creators of color and talk about some books made by some folks that maybe aren't getting the limelight, so to speak. I mean, this book won an Eisner in 2018. I didn't learn about it till last year, and that's my own fault for not being plugged into the right areas of comics. So maybe that's something that we can all strive to do as we work to be more inclusive and to be, we can make our own little corner, our own little nerd world, little part of the zeitgeist, a better place, and maybe that'll bleed out into the rest of the world. And as we roll into a year that's an election year that's really going to focus heavy on a lot of racial issues, I think it's important to learn how we can talk to one another. And that's just my 2 cents. So go check this book out. Like I said, it's called Kindred. Octavia E. Butler originated the story. John Jennings and Damian Duffy. Good stuff. I'll throw throw some pictures up for anybody. So we're ready to kind of wrap this show up. Ready to bring it home.
Yeah.
We've had some Conan. We've had some vampires, Batman punching murder things, and time traveling social disparity. I love comics.
Yeah.
Fucking love comics.
Flavors.
Yeah, dude, it's like, look at, like, just, I mean, think about what we've talked about on the show alone. I love comics. So cool. Love comics so much that I buy them every week. Usually on Wednesdays, or at least I try to. Sometimes you can't get to the store in time, though. But every week, a new book is going to come out. You know, at least one's going to come out that you're gonna want to get. And I love that we end our show by telling people what we think is going to be good. Now, we don't know. Unless like Ahoy, they've sent us the copy of the book and we've read it and we know it's going to be awesome, and then we'll just tell you. But we're taking our chances. We're kind of setting our menu, and hopefully we'll get a good dish. So Matt, what are you picking up this Wednesday on New Comic Book Day?
Well, on the subject of time travel, I feel the same about time travel that you do. I just kind of sigh when I learn that that's an element of a story. I have no explanation for that. I don't know what it is about that element. I'm just like, time travel.
Overdone.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyhow, despite that, what I'm looking forward to is from Aftershock Comics, The Man Who Effed Up Time, #1. Yeah. I believe it looks like I stole this preview from you, Caleb. Hit delete there.
Carry on.
This is by John Layman and Carl Mostert, if I pronounced that right. The synopsis is Sean Bennett is just your everyday, ordinary lab worker in a high-tech lab with a prototype time machine. And yeah, he's got the same temptations any of us would have about going back in time just a bit to correct mistakes of the past and right old wrongs. So John Layman writing this, I'm assuming this is going to be a laugh riot.
Oh, yeah.
So, and anything this guy does gets my attention. I generally try out anything he does with very few exceptions. But I'm going to try my best to get on this one.
You did see that they're doing a Chew crossover with Outer Darkness.
I certainly did.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
How can you not be?
I too, get anything that John Layman or Rob Guillory work on.
Yeah.
They're both just amazing. So, my book that's on the menu here, Star Wars Darth Vader #1 by Marvel Comics. I knew I wasn't stealing that one from you.
I picked 2.
Greg Pak, Raphael Ienco, in Hewick Lee. Darth Vader starts searching for his son in the rebellion following the events of The Empire Strikes Back. According to Pak, the series will explore Vader's past in a way that will make people's heads explode.
Greg Pak, that's y'all might get me to read Star Wars. Say his name for me.
Raphael Ienco.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how he illustrates this.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's good. Y'all gonna get me to read a Star Wars book. Damn it.
The main Star Wars title right now is really good. I'm hoping that this feels right in along because they're moving everything to post Empire Strikes Back right now. So relaunching everything in a post Empire.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, Greg Pak writing it.
Yep.
It's hard to say no to that.
Yep.
All right. So next week I'm going to stick with the Marvel train since Craig cranked it up and has us going on it. X-Men and Fantastic Four #1 comes out next week. I am really interested to see what this is doing because #1, it's written by Chip Zdarsky and drawn by Terry Dodson, both creators that I genuinely enjoy more than I don't. I love Chip on Marvel 2-in-1. I like the work he did with The Thing and Johnny Storm. That series was awesome. Like, in my opinion, that should have been who they moved to Fantastic Four because that was so damn good. But they didn't, and I can't fix that. Nobody asked for my opinion. But on this book, it's going to focus on Franklin Richards' connection to the mutants and Krakoa. Like if you remember back to Hoxpox when they had those little pages where they talk about things. Franklin's technically an Omega level mutant, and he's the mutant, one of the only mutants who's not living on Krakoa and who hasn't necessarily shown up yet of importance. And there's a few others on that list, but I mean he's definitely on the top. And we've all been kind of wondering how that's going to work, because so much of the Fantastic Four is family, but so much of the mutants is family, and can you be caught in the middle? And you can, and I think Chip's going to explore that. So I'm really curious to see what they do with this book. And it's Terry Dodson art. I mean, it's going to be pretty. Yeah. At the end of the day, like even if you don't give a shit about the story, it's going to be good to look at, which is always nice. Makes you feel good inside. So, all right, we ready to bring this thing home? Wrap it up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, girls, people who are gender nonconforming, we love you. We thank you for spending your time with us as always. We really appreciate you listening to us. We'd love it even more if you came and hung out with us on the Facebook's page, or if you tweeted us up on the Twitters, or I don't know.
Find us on the interwebs in general.
What do you do on Instagram? Like you heart it? I don't know.
Come find us wherever Southern Fried Geekeries are sold.
Yeah. We are going to be back same time, same place next week. We're going to talk about some more comics. Whoever you are, I hope your team wins in the Super Bowl. And if it doesn't, don't worry. Up the Super Hole. That's what I said. The big game. Well, fuck them. They'll be all right. So the big game, so to speak, hopefully they'll win. And if not, they'll have another one next year. We do want to reiterate that everybody should have an amazing and fantastic Black History Month. Do yourself a favor, seek out some folks, and really appreciate the breadth of work that African Americans have given us throughout time. Not just our recent history, but always. And go forth, love some comics.
Woo!
Hi, Jerry.
You can't let it die.